I was Googling around for Psalm 8 and I found a really catchy, upbeat tune that just whisked me along. And so I'm going to give that a try. I found out afterwards that the live recording that I found from 2011 in Israel was a celebration of Messianic Hebrew composers from the 1980s. So this is a musical setting by David Loden, one of those pioneers.
I'm trying to open it, but
yeah.
It's not opening. Do you have it there?
I do, but you know what? I'll just sing it for now, and then
just tell us, just walk us through those verses, and then
so it's Adonai Adonenu, the very after the superscript, the very first verse in Psalm 8, verse 2. Adonai Adonenu, ma'adir shimcha bechol haaretz, asher tena hodecha al hashamayim. Okay. Adonai Adonenu, ma'adir shimcha bechol haaretz, asher tenahodcha al hashamayim. Adonai Adonenu, ma'adir shimcha bechol haaretz, asher tenahodcha al hashamayim, al hashamayim, al hashamayim.
Well, that is beautiful. And by the way, this whole issue of Messianic Judaism in Israel is a big deal right now. It's actually quite a phenomenon. And it's kind of a underground, although not so underground anymore, explosion. A lot of young Israelis are becoming Christians or Messianic Jews. And in fact, there's a church in the Old City. On one of the trips, it might have been the November 18 trip. Is Judy Hollander here? I don't remember if anybody was with me on the November 2018 trip. We sat at having a cup of tea and a cup of coffee in the Old City at an Anglican church. Judy, were you with me then when we had?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm in the car.
Okay, there were a group of us sitting in the Old City, remember, at that Anglican church?
Yes.
And we tried to go into the service because the music sounded like that, very upbeat, very folky, all in Hebrew. And it turned out to be one of these Messianic Jewish churches. They were using the Anglican church. They were all Israelis. It was all in Hebrew. And it was really disturbing. But they wouldn't let us take pictures. They were very welcoming of us when they thought where they could be proselytizing, not so welcoming when they realized. I was kind of curious from an anthropological point of view and wanted to get information. They were not so forthcoming, but the church was packed and it was entirely in Hebrew and it was really creepy. But they sing a lot of great Psalms.
Yeah, music's everything. Can I just say one thing about Friday night? Is there any way that we could get the Zoom address early on for the follow-up? Last week was sort of a nightmare for some of us to go from the Facebook to a Zoom.
Yes, this Friday night, the Zoom will be sent out early. We had a lot of security concerns for Friday night, and Syed was being attacked for speaking at CBST from various different groups. So in order to limit the possibilities of Zoom bombing, we only gave out the Zoom address at the service. So that was a security issue. We know it makes it a little bit more difficult, but we did give it out multiple times that night, but I know it was a problem for some people. But this Friday night, since we don't think it's as much of a security issue, you know, it's a complicated world we live in, and we try to balance out having different kinds of programs and different kinds of things. And we kept the link for the Zoom program was listed in the Facebook comments for Friday night repeatedly after he spoke. But I get it. It's not the most open and accessible thing, but that's the price we pay for trying to be a little bit more security minded.
And I'll just tell everybody, there is, if you go to the CBST website, there is a tech support and login support number that you can text or call, and it is always staffed if we have a program.
And that's actually a good number to write down, and maybe we should, so that you have it if you're having a problem.
In the chat, or Babette can do it. And please write this down and stick it right on your computer, because people, since my email is all over, people tend to email me hysterical at the last minute, how do you get in? And there is someone there, and their job is to make sure that everybody gets in. Kristen, could you just shake that instrument again?
Well, it's Julia, and I
Julia,
know
Julia. Yeah, I'm sorry, Julia.
But yes, we can blend sometimes into one person.
Julia. Now, what is that? Now, which one is that in Hebrew? Is that the toph or the machol, or because I know that that is a very ancient biblical instrument mentioned in
toph, but the ancient tophs did not have jangles on them.
Ah,
it's toph just means percussion, so it's some kind of, so that is a percussive.
We'll talk about this in great detail in about 2 weeks.
Excellent. Yes, Lisa's going to do a whole presentation on the instruments, and Jacob's going to talk about biblical music. But by the way, that verse that you use, that verse 2 of Psalm 8 is a very, very famous verse, and it's a beautiful one. And we recite it on Rosh Hashanah. It's in the Rosh Hashanah Musaf. I just picked up our new Machzor. So in the Kedusha for Musaf on Rosh Hashanah is the verse. Now I have to have the right glasses here. Hold on just a second. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma Adir Shimcha B'chol Haaretz. So now when we come to Musaf on Rosh Hashanah, you'll recognize Psalm 8. Psalm 8 is sprinkled. Elements of Psalm 8 we'll find in various places liturgically. So thank you for choosing that verse. It's verse 2, and it's in Rosh Hashanah Musaf.
Well, and
has everybody gotten your Machzor? And remember, if you can't afford it, we have a fund to make it possible. Just email me at rabbi@cbst.org. We want everybody to have the book in your hand. It'll make the experience so much nicer.
Well, and
yes,
Rabbi, this is going back, but I just want to say I hope it's okay that I shared that. I ended up not.
Absolutely.
I didn't
realize. Of course.
I was trying to figure out what kind of concert it was, and it wasn't until this morning that I found the paragraph talking about it being a messianic.
I can definitely separate the art from the artist, the creator. Yes. And absolutely. No, of course. Listen, would that mean we can't sing Handel's Messiah? Right. I mean, that's not a Jewish, I love Handel's Messiah. Right. So no, I think that we take, but it's just I was just adding it as more information. And I think it's a much bigger phenomenon in Israel than it is here in the United States, or maybe the United States is so big and things get diluted so easily. And in Israel, anyway, all right, let's go to Psalm 8. Anything else, questions or anything else? Yeah, and Saul Zalkin likes Wagner. I know, me too.
Wagner, Max, Wagner. I know what you're talking about.
Is Yael Bat Chava on this? I forgot to ask her to read it through in Hebrew because I wasn't totally starting.
Yael is here today. All right. We all see this.
All right. Yael, would you mind reading for us, and we'll do Hebrew English?
Sure. למנצח על הגיתית מזמור לדוד.
For the leader on the Gittit or Gittith, a psalm of David.
אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, אשר תנה הודך על השמיים.
O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name throughout the earth, you who have covered the heavens with your splendor.
מפי עוללים ויונקים ייסדת העוז למען צורריך, להשבית אויב ומתנקם.
From the mouths of infants and sucklings you have founded strength on account of your foes, to put an end to enemy and avenger.
Harold, can you scroll up?
Is it scrolling or no?
Yes. No.
There it is.
כי אראה שמך מעשה אצבעותיך, ירח וכוכבים אשר כוננת.
When I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars you set in place.
This is as far as I can scroll Yael?
We only see the first 4 verses.
Oh, okay, let me try this again. Okay, hold on. Thank you for letting me know. Is this better?
Yep.
Okay.
מה אנוש כי תזכרנו ובן אדם כי תפקדנו.
When I behold, hold on, no, which one? Tifkadenu.
Fine.
What is man that you have been mindful of him, mortal man that you have taken note of him?
ותחסרהו מעט מאלוהים וכבוד והדר תעטרהו.
That you have made him a little less than divine
Sorry.
and adorned him with glory and majesty.
תמשילהו במעשה ידיך כל שתה תחת רגליו.
You have made him master over your handiwork, laying the world at his feet.
צונא ואלפים כולם וגם בהמות שדי.
Sheep and oxen, all of them, and wild beasts too.
ציפור שמיים ודגי הים עובר אורחות ימים.
The birds of the heavens,
Sorry.
getting a little dizzy here. The birds of the heavens, the fish of the sea, whatever travels the paths of the seas.
אדוני, אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ.
O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name throughout the earth. Okay, I think even just that overall reading, you can feel that this psalm is quite different than the first 7. I think number 1 is quite different, and then I think number 2 through 7 have a lot of similarities. And you'll start to feel where there are really big differences. First of all, it's pretty clear, just the overall reading of this without going into the deep translation and struggling through and examining differences. This isn't a psalm written by somebody in deep pain, right? Would you agree with that? This isn't a psalm by somebody who's struggling to survive and is looking for strength, support, looking to be seen, calling out to God, all of those very, very traditional psalm motifs that are so powerful in Psalms 2 through 7. Psalm 8 is quite different. There are other psalms like this. This isn't unique, but it is the first time we're encountering this. Psalm 1, if you remember, was very much what we call a wisdom psalm, in that it's giving you advice about what it means to be a good human being and how to place things. Now, I see what Sarah is writing. I'm not arguing that this is a different person, but the mode, the moment, the emotion of the psalm is not one of despair, although it's a little bit more complicated than just joy. Okay, so that there are psalms that are full of more joy, but this is, first of all, and the other thing is this psalm is super famous for all different reasons, but phrases like "from the mouths of babes" comes from this psalm. And I think yesterday we got up to the 5th or we got up to the 6th. I want to finish the overall of the Hebrew, just a one, I think we finished 6, right? Yes. So let's just finish it and then we'll start getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So 7, the shoresh there of that first word, mem shin lamed, is to rule over, or a memshalah in Hebrew. Yeah, so line 7. A memshalah in Hebrew is a government or a system of ruling. And so this means you have made him, the ending, the suffix is him. B'ma'aseh yadecha. You've made him rule. So that one word, the first word in Hebrew, literally is you have made him rule. That's a lot of English words to get that one Hebrew word. B'ma'aseh yadecha. Which is literally in, but here it just means any way of you have made him rule over. I think that's okay to say over. B'ma'aseh, the same word is oseh, like oseh shamayim, in the work of yadecha, your hands. Kol shata tachat raglav. Now this is interesting. So we have hands in the first verse, half of the parallelism, and raglav, feet. So you'll see a lot of very interesting, very classic biblical poetic techniques So you have made him master over the work of your hands, literally in Hebrew, laying the world at his feet. So hands and feet. Let's keep going. We'll look more at language as we compare and see other translations. I just want to get through the overview. So this is now a list of a lot of different kinds of animals. Now, up until Psalm 7, I think the only animal we had heard from was the lion, right? I don't think we had other animals so far. So it's fun. There are a lot of, like we could talk about biblical references to musical instruments, there's a world of biblical references to animals. So Tzonev Alafim, sheep and oxen. Would you call that oxen, Yael? Alafim? Just some kind of big, it's a...
This is not modern Hebrew. I don't know what that is.
But Bahamot, in Hebrew, behema could be a cow, could be a big...
Beasts. I think that's the translation.
Yeah.
But I want to say the word alafim means thousands.
Thousands. Interesting. So we'll see how different people translate that. Tzipor, classic, totally normal word for bird. Shamayim, so birds of the heavens, udgei hayam, and fish of the sea, et nachta. Again, so you see a lot of categories: birds of the heavens, fish of the sea. And then I love this phrase, over archot yamim. So not just whatever travels the ways, or whatever goes across the ways of the seas. All right, let's go down to 10. Then we go back to this phrase that's very similar to line 2, right? Adonai Adonenu ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz. Remember line 2, it's Adonai Adonenu ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz. So this line 10 is the first half of line 2 repeated. And this is the phrase that we find in various places in liturgy, but as I pointed out in the Rosh Hashanah liturgy, which is a big question. Why would we use this in Rosh Hashanah? But okay, so, O Lord, our Lord. So now I'm going to point out something now which I haven't said so far. The Yud Hey Vav Hey, I've told you, is the 4-letter name of God. But traditionally we pronounce it as Adonai. So there's the word Adonenu, which follows Yud Hey Vav Hey. So that's why they translate, instead of, often we see Yud Hey Vav Hey and then Elohai, my God, or Eloheinu, our God, or we see other things. To have Adonai, Adonenu, first of all, it sounds nice. But now this is going to take a little bit to look at, but this doesn't show the vowels. The vowels that you see under Yud Hey Vav Hey, you see the shva, which is the 2 dots on top of each other under the yud, and the kamatz, which is the thing under the vav, are vowels that we would use in the word Adonai, although not really, because Adonai has an aleph, so you can't just have a shva. It has to be the line with the shva. So the yud hey vav hey has just the 2 dots, and Adonai has the kamatz. So that's why people see the vowels are for the word Adonai, but Yud Hey Vav Hey, we don't know what the vowels should be. That's the rabbinic tradition. It's a complete, it's an indicator of how to pronounce it. That might be over the head of people for whom Hebrew is mysterious, but for those who know Hebrew, it's kind of an interesting thing. Okay, so that's the overview, and now let's dig in. This is a fun one. So let's go back to the beginning. And I think maybe I'm going to look at Levi now, or Levi.
Would you like me to
have that?
Would you like me to put that up?
Yeah, sure. If people can remember some of these translations, because Levi does some interesting things, and then we're going to do altar.
I'm hoping everybody, if you've printed out the basic text, well, Levi has the Hebrew in it too, so.
It does have the Hebrew, but he does some interesting changes if I can get to his. Any comments or questions about what we've done so far? Hebrew, English? This is a...
Well, I looked up alafim, and it is cattle or oxen. And I think that there's a slightly different, I'm not finding, I know that there's a word that sounds just like it, which is 1,000 or 10,000, but that doesn't come up in my translation here. So I think that this might be a slightly different word than that word, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could look it up later. It's certainly spelled the same.
But here it means something.
Yeah, it couldn't, and that's the thing, is that it might mean things like, it might come, I have to look this up, but alafim is spelled the same way to mean what Yael is saying. It could mean this is like a herd. Yeah, like herd. Yael just said that. I couldn't think of the English word, Yael. Thank you. I couldn't think of that. But it could just mean kind of a big group of big animals, because the feeling of the whole verse is, big animals. This is about, or not, so now it's like livestock as opposed to
Right.
fish or birds, or these kinds of animals are often grouped together to mean the kind of the, livestock. I don't know what, I'm bad at words these. Okay, so this is Levi, Levi. So first of all, we see that he does include the superscription as part of his psalm, and he calls it the conductor. Remember, Lama Natseach can be leader, lead performer. So he's indicating he sees this as music. And he clearly sees gitit as a kind of an instrument, but has no idea what kind. So he's just leaving it without translation, but in the italics. So the tradition, by the way, the print tradition is that when you write a word that is a foreign word in English, you italicize it to indicate it's a foreign word until that foreign word becomes part of the language. So for instance, you wouldn't italicize the word Shabbat, because at this point, the word Shabbat is part of English. You wouldn't italicize the word Torah. You wouldn't italicize the word kosher. All those words now are really part of the English language. But you would italicize words that are not known to a regular English speaker who is around a lot of Jews. But so that's the difference. So by the translator italicizing gitit, first of all, he's indicating it's not an English word and we don't know what it means, but he's just saying it's some kind of musical instrument, a Psalm of David. And again, he uses the word Adonai, and in the Hebrew does Yud Yud, so he doesn't even print the Yud He Vav He. Our Majesty. So he doesn't like the word our Lord. He feels like Lord is an obstructive phrase. So majesty. And you'll see that there's a sense of majesty throughout this psalm, a sense of, and he's indicating this by using that translation. Notice that adir he translates as majestic, and majesty was before that. And again, remember I told you in Hebrew, we like to play with the same roots. Adonenu and adir are not the same roots, but Levi clearly sees them as trying to achieve the same experience of majesty, like being in nature and feeling the majestic. How majestic is your name, your capitalized, throughout the earth, whose splendor resounds across the heavens. So what he does, unlike what the Sepharia did, is to show that parallelism of earth and heavens, and those words end both of those verses. And in poetry, in biblical poetry, when you say earth and heavens, when you're using the two end words, like when you say everything from A to Z, or the earth and the heavens, you mean everything in between also. It's a way of saying everything. So it's a broad statement of expansiveness. We're not focused here on the micro, we're focused on majesty across the earth and splendor across the heavens. Yes, Jacob, I wasn't going to use that word. It's called a merism, is the biblical poetic word. It is actually a word for biblical I guess in all poetry, merism, when you use a phrase of two ends like A to Z or earth to heavens, it's called merism, which is a great word if you love words. So one question we'll ask is, what does it mean, how majestic is your name? Why is name so important? Why doesn't it say how majestic you are, b'chol haaretz? What does that mean to say how majestic is your name? So be thinking about that. Mepi olalim v'yonkim yisadta oz. Out of the mouths of babes, only because that's our familiar translation, and children. Now, he adds these, what do you call those? Lines, the little lines, you know what I mean?
An M dash.
What did you call it?
An M dash. That's the printer's term, is an M dash.
I didn't know that word. M dash?
Because an M is a little longer. It's the length of an M instead of the length of an
wow.
N. Yes.
M dash versus N dash.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, this is a very smart group of people. Excellent. So what is he doing with the dash? Well, you'll see after Olalim, there's a psik, as I've learned to call them from Jacob. So there's some kind of gap. And it's almost as if Yonkim is emphasizing maybe younger than even children. So not only out of the mouths of babes, not out of the mouths of children, but even those who are nursing. So a sense of the very young understand something profound here or are connected to something deep. Leman Sorecha. Now this part of the verse is not easy to understand. Notice that Levi translates lahashpit very differently than what Sepharia translated it. And this verse gets a lot of attention because what is lahashbit? So you can see in the word, the shoresh has Shabbat in there. So that's where Levi gets this, and this is in a form of the verb called hifil. So it's to make a Shabbat, oyev, from your enemy or on your enemy and on the one who is an avenger. That's a very complicated, it's a very strange phrase. We saw in, I don't have the Sepharia in front of me, but the mind says, the other way of translating this, which Sepharia does of some, you have founded strength, but because of your tormentors to still foe and avenger. So we're going to leave that be for a second. That has a lot of differences, but we'll keep looking at that. Ki ereh shemecha maaseh etzbotecha. Now, it's a different word because here shemecha is from shamayim, which means heavens. But it hears, you hear and you're here, shimcha, right? Even though they're totally different words, this is poetry after all. And the alliteration in sound. So there's a little bit of a connection between shimcha, shamayim, shemecha. So, okay, but I'm going to leave that. For now, I see your heavens. Ki ereh, I see shemecha, your heavens, maaseh etzbo techa. The work, the action of your fingers. Yareach v'chochavim asher konanta. Moon and stars which you fixed, or you prepared. Ma enosh, what is a human being that you would remember or be aware? Uven Adam, and a child of Adam that you should even care. All right, let's stop here. Why are we stopping here? How many verses are in this psalm altogether? What's the total number? 10. So verse 5 in this psalm is the fulcrum verse, or in many ways the would be the headline verse. And we can tell that for many reasons when you look at it overall, but also what's the word at the center of this? Ma enosh, that word enosh, asking, what is a human being that you should be aware? By the way, there are some people who think this is what inspires Shakespeare's great speech, "What a piece of work is man," is from this psalm. Ma enosh. This question of what a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, etc. That this is the biblical. And by the way, Shakespeare really knew the Bible, and Shakespeare often. I once actually read a book just about Shakespeare and the Bible. These are never coincidences. He was deeply, 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 as were many great writers. The Bible was the book that everybody was reading. So these are not coincidences, and he wasn't like whipping through the book looking for something to say, to write this speech. This is a very important, this whole psalm is all about So the Holy, excuse me, the Holy One has created all of these remarkable beings, all these remarkable creatures. What is a human being that you should take notice of us? Why should we be so important? What's our point here? What's the point of humanity? You've got the birds, you've got the animals, you've got the and there's a kind of a, I should say in this verse, a sense of wonder. I don't think it's hostile. I don't think it's confrontational in a, you know, I think it's a little bit wondering, like, what is special about us that you should even take us into your knowledge? And really go back and read the whole thing of What a Piece of Work is Man. It's really, what?
Merritt just put it in chat.
Oh, Merritt, do you want to read it? I think this would be a good point. This is the verse to read that.
Okay. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor women neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so.
So now that's fantastic. So thank you so much. That's fantastic. So, and you read it beautifully. You'll see the echoes of that in the Psalm. Not word for word, of course. It's an inspired thing, not a translation. But read it that way with that knowledge. Ma enosh, what is man that you should be aware of us? Uven adam, that you should even care. And here, what did it say about angels in that? Which I haven't memorized the whole thing. But here, you have made them a little bit of God. So exactly what, very similar to what Merritt said there. Uchavod v'hadar, and you've crowned.
Oh no, Rabbi,
Your hands and everything you have placed in under their feet. Are there, should I stop? Are there other comments? Let's take some other comments.
On the other end from Shakespeare, we have these lines in Hair. Yael, where does it show up in Hair?
What a piece of work is man.
How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and movement, how express and admirable, in action how like an angel, etc.
Wow.
Excellent.
Priya, you and I are of the same generation.
Yes.
Many of us. Rabbi, I have a question here.
Sure.
Enosh, the words that we use for person, being, mortal, man, woman, Ben Adam, Enosh. I don't know if it shows up in the Psalms, but Gaver. Does Enosh, I'm looking at some dictionary entries that seem to say that Enosh has more of a feeling of mortal, something that like who grows in the morning and then, like grass that grows in the morning and then perishes with the wind, rather than
that's a different psalm. That's a different psalm. Mm-hmm.
But the use of Enosh here instead of Adam.
Well, but they do use Ben Adam.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yes, there's no question that it's mortal because we're human beings. So humanity has built in it. So for those who are interested in I'll say a little thing about Hebrew, it's related to the word ish. Enosh is related to the word ish. There are a whole bunch of words in which, okay, get ready for this. Put on your seatbelts for those of you who know any Hebrew, where the nun disappears. We have a whole bunch of words where the nun disappears. That's a whole other question about biblical Hebrew. But ish, the word for man, is definitely related to the word enosh. So enosh, you wouldn't hear a modern Hebrew speaker use the word enosh to mean man. And it does, would you use it for anything? I don't think so.
No,
it has an archaic, you know, like a King Jamesian in Hebrew feeling to it. You know, it's a high level word. You know, it's an SAT word, but it is definitely related somehow to the word ish for man. And we see a bunch of words for instance, the word bat in Hebrew is originally bint, which we will see, by the way, in Arabic, where it is still bint. And it would be interesting to ask an Arabic speaker if enosh is still the word, or the Arabic, how to say man in Arabic, if the nun is still there. So scholars of Hebrew often look at Arabic because Arabic maintains some older traditions of Hebrew. And one of them is that this nun thing that drops out of a bunch of Hebrew words has remained in some Arabic words. I am not an Arabic scholar. I'm not a Hebrew scholar. These are just things I've studied over years and years of Hebrew. So, but Enosh, but there's just a parallelism here between Enosh and Ben Adam. There is no question that over and over again in the Psalms, and most famously in the one that we sing and the chorus just recorded, that part of understanding what it is to be human is to understand we are like the passing grass. While we are a piece, Me'at Elohim, we might be a piece of God, we are not God. While there might be a piece of the angels in us, we are not angels. Over and over again, the Psalms emphasize that if we are to become fully human and achieve our highest level possible, a piece of it is recognizing that while we are a piece of God, we are not God. And we are human, which means that we are mortal, and it means we're not totally in charge. So even this, it says, we've been put in charge, but at the same time, we know we're going to pass. But other comments or about this?
Yeah, there's some fascinating conversation.
Great, thank you. Let's
Ira
hear it.
Rosenblum says, wasn't Enosh a grandson of Adam? And then our Hebraist Mia Rothstein, hiding behind the column in the back of the room,
Yes.
would use the word enoshut,
Yes.
mean
For
humanity.
humanity,
Right?
correct.
And Lisa Brown says, is enosh also means weak?
Weak?
Weak as in the opposite of strong.
Not that I know of.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Enosh means weak?
Yep. Weak, strong.
Interesting.
Yep. Weak, sick. And if anybody has the BDB, whatever it's called.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll look that up.
And then Chazan Naomi Hirsch says replies to Ira, no, Cain's son was Enoch, E-N-O-C-H, not Enosh, E-N-O-S-H. But sometimes a lot of these names in the Bible, if I'm correct, the Breshit names actually mean other things, like Chava. And so there might be do you think there might be some Enosh? And then Cantor Nimi says, but there is an Enosh in the 10 generations between Adam and Noah.
Correct.
Wow.
So, Yael, do you want to say something about Bat Chava and Ben Adam?
Sure. So in Israel, when I was growing up, a lot of people changed their last name from a more European sounding name to a Hebrew sounding name. So I was made fun of growing up like all kids are because of my last name, which was Mendel, and people would say, yeah, El Mendel, Roshel, Tembel. Tembel is stupid. So I didn't like that last name, so I wanted to make it more Hebrew sounding. And then in my late teens and early 20s, I was a very staunch feminist, as I still am. So I decided that I was not a Ben Adam, which means human being in Hebrew, but I was Bat Chava, which is the daughter of Eve, not the son of Adam. And it also so happens that my mom's Hebrew name is Chava. And so I changed my name legally from Mendel to Bat Chava. And if I'd known I would end up in the United States, I might not have done that because nobody can pronounce my name properly unless they're CBST members. But here we are.
Here we are. Thank you. Yes, and so that's why so many Israelis have very Hebrew names. It was a definite thing for people to, when they came to Israel and Palestine before the state of Israel, to change their names. Ben Gurion's name was not Ben Gurion in Europe. And my cousin, my father's cousin, who went from Poland to Israel, changed his name from Kleinbaum, which is a very Yiddish Eastern European name, to Sneh, which is the burning bush of, Kleinbaum means little tree, and sneh is a little bush.
Oh.
Okay,
Lisa
great.
Brown has her hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to add that the root is, the shorish is the same, but it's anash. It's not enosh, which means weak. So the syllables are, the root is the same. Syllables are different.
So that's Aleph Nun Shin?
Yes.
And Merit
Interesting.
said, Merit says, what is halach me? Merit, is there a line reference for that, or am I?
I don't see it. Yeah, where's the, what's, give us the,
No, sorry. That was, it's in Lachado D, and I just blurted out that question.
Oh,
It
okay.
has nothing to do with the song.
oh,
Beit halach me. It's the person
oh,
from
that's
Bethlehem, right?
right. It's Beit Lechem in Hebrew is one word and it's Bethlehem, but it literally means, so Beit Halachmi is from, it's from, so, which it means literally the house of bread. Beit Lechem are two words, but Bethlehem.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any hands or questions in chat. If you want to press on a little bit more.
Excellent. Yeah, let's press on and maybe we can finish leaving. So you'll see these questions. So I'm pointing out the questions because as we go through, you'll see how they're very interesting, different responses and answers to them. So again, this 5 and 6, which is this fulcrum of really, if the beginning of the Psalm is God's majesty. We're thinking about the creation, heavens and earth, the bigness, the majestic. What is human beings that you should think of us? You remember us, Ben Adam, and then you have made them just a little bit, lack but little of God in this translation, as we saw in Shakespeare. The sense of we are just a step below the angels. With glory and honor, you've crowned them. 7, you have let them rule the works of your hands. Here we have the word maaseh again. We see that word a lot. Everything you place under their feet. This is the hand-feet merism thing. Sheep and kine. There you go. What's kine? Who knows what a kine is? All of them. See, he also is looking at alafim. Somebody could look up what kine means. The creatures of my own. What? Cattle?
Yep.
Okay. Fowl of heaven and fish of the sea. And again, we have these merisms all over the place. By saying fowl of heaven, and fish of the sea, it means everything in between, all of the creatures gliding through the paths of the sea. And back to that verse 2, which repeats to end the psalm with verse 10, Adonai, our majesty, how majestic is your name through all the earth. And we come back to the question, why does it say Ma'adir Shimcha and not just how majestic are you through all the earth? So let's end with that question and ask people if they have thoughts about that. And tomorrow we'll go to Alter and to the other translations if we can.
All
Thoughts
right.
about this use of name?
So, I don't want to. Was that? Are we ending, Rabbi?
Do we have time for anybody to respond to that, or no?
Of course we do.
Maybe not.
We have a
Okay.
minute. If anybody wants
Okay,
to read
all right.
it, why are we saying name here?
Here and in verse 2. So you see the reference to the Holy One is about majestic is your name through all the B'chol Haaretz.
Razan Naomi Hirsch raised her hand.
So I think it could have something to do with the importance we place on a name. We say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is God's name. We don't say Baruch Atah in the second verse of the Shema.
Yeah, very interesting. I never made the connection to that verse. Excellent.
And I think on that we have to leave it
Okay.
hanging. 2 things. I am putting one last time in the chat the number to call in case there's a program you can't get into. Please, 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 please write this down. Put it on a sticker. Put it on your computer. Because many people have taken me to be that person. And if there's a problem logging in, I get texts, Facebook messages, and emails. Here it is again. And there were several questions about the Hebrew class when this registration opens. I just texted Rabbi Rapport, who texted me back 2 words. She said, today, inshallah, the registration for the Hebrew classes will be going out. So
Yeah, sorry. I thought it was going to happen yesterday, but clearly I was wrong.
So
We're
it is
supposed
today,
to, but inshallah, right.
inshallah. So sit by
God
your
willing.
email. God
And
willing.
thank you, everybody, for your feedback about the virtual background. If your votes weren't clear enough, which they were, I tried to use it in a staff meeting and the green screen fell on top of me.
Oh, no.
So that nixed it. We're not going to do that. Okay, but thank you for your feedback. You're going to get to see my apartment. And Randy coming in and out to the printer, as you can see.
And the dogs and the socks.
And the dogs. And what can I do?
We all love
Yep.
to see Randy and the dogs. Okay. Okay, so I have my toast.
Yes.
Adonai, Adonai, Ma'adir Shimcha, Bechol ha'aretz, Asher tenahodcha, Al hashamayim, Adonai, Adonai, Ma'adir Shimcha, Bechol ha'aretz, Asher tenahodcha, Al hashamayim, Al hashamayim, Al hashamayim.
Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow. And thanks for those of you who came last night to our Unorthodox show. It was a lot of fun to do. And really, if you haven't seen Unorthodox, I recommend it. Very interesting. And by the way, I don't know what to do. I listened to the book on audiobooks. You can't say you read it anymore, right? Am I allowed to say I read a book when I actually listened to it?
You can say it, sure.
I know, but it doesn't feel right because I do experience it differently.
You listen to it.
I listened to it, which was really enjoyable. I strongly recommend the original book that she wrote.
Right, so
Bye,
Rabbi,
everybody. See you
Rabbi.
tomorrow. So much fun to study with you.
Rabbi, how about if I see